As Canadians, we know that protecting our vast Arctic borders isn't just about spending billions. It's about being the smartest player in the room. But could a single, budget-friendly jet truly outmaneuver the world's most expensive stealth fighters in just 3 seconds? In a recent NATO simulation, the Swedish Gripen did exactly that, flipping the script on air dominance through pure tactical genius and electronic warfare. Today, we're dissecting those critical 3 seconds that stunned military analysts from Ottawa to London. Is this the blueprint for a more resilient, cost-effective Royal Canadian Air Force? Let's dive into the strategy. Now, look, when we talk about the vastness of our Canadian landscape, from the rugged Atlantic coast to the frozen tundra of the high Arctic, we understand that sovereignty isn't just a word, it's a commitment. For decades, we've been told that air superiority belongs only to those with the deepest pockets and the flashiest stealth coatings. But what happened in that multinational simulation shattered every preconceived notion held by the top brass in London, Washington, and even right here in Ottawa. You have to picture the scene. The sky was crowded with the elite, the billion-dollar heavyweights that dominate the headlines. These are aircraft designed with one goal: total dominance. Among them, the Swedish JAS 39 Gripen seemed like an underdog, a light fighter built by a nation that, much like Canada, has to be resourceful because they don't have an infinite pile of tax dollars to burn. As the simulated missiles began to fly, and radar systems from the most advanced adversaries locked on, the Gripen found itself in a kill box. It was being hunted by a jet that, on paper, should have swatted it out of the sky without breaking a sweat. We're talking about an adversary with superior altitude, massive engine thrust, and a radar reach that covers half a province. At the 33-second mark of this engagement, the simulation data showed the Gripen was as good as gone. But what transpired next wasn't just a pilot having a lucky day. It was the realization of a philosophy that we Canadians deeply respect. The idea that being smarter and more adaptable is far more lethal than being just big and expensive. In a heartbeat, the script flipped. As simulated missiles were screaming toward it, the Gripen pilot didn't panic. At 0133, the cockpit's radar warning receiver was wailing, a sound that would freeze the blood of any ordinary person. But this is where the genius of the Swedish design met the cold steel of pilot instinct. Step 1 was digital. The Gripen didn't just try to hide, it fought back in the electromagnetic spectrum. It activated its electronic warfare suite, sending out a wall of digital noise, a ghost in the machine that confused the enemy's radar just long enough, just a fraction of a second, to create an opening. Then came the physical maneuver at 0204 that left the exercise supervisors speechless. The jet suddenly pitched upward into a steep, punishing climb, and then snapped left into a high G roll. This is the kind of move that would send a lesser airframe into a flat spin or structural failure. For 3 seconds, barely long enough to draw a breath, the Gripen simply vanished. It wasn't on the radar, and it wasn't in the enemy's visual canopy. It was a ghost. And in that window of invisibility, the pilot used the helmet-mounted sight to lock on with an Iris-T infrared missile. This is the kicker. The Iris-T doesn't care about your radar cross-section or your jamming. It sees the heat of your engines, and it doesn't miss. By 0231, the kill was confirmed. A clean, instant strike. The pilot of that supposedly superior jet reportedly never even saw the threat coming. This wasn't a fluke of the software. It was the result of a machine designed to think faster than its opponent. As the data from this incident began to circulate through the briefing rooms of our allies, it sent a shockwave through the military establishment. They started dissecting the replays at 0302, looking for any excuse to call it a glitch. But the numbers didn't lie. The Gripen had achieved a clean offensive kill in an impossible situation. And this is where it gets interesting for us here in Canada. For a long time, the Gripen was unfairly labeled as the budget option, the cheap alternative for nations that couldn't afford the top-tier stuff. But after those 3 seconds, that narrative died. It began to be viewed as a precision threat, a tactical rival that didn't need a billion-dollar support network to be effective. Nations like Brazil, who had already put their chips on the Gripen, felt a massive wave of validation. Even countries like India, Ukraine, and yes, our own decision-makers in Canada had to stop and take a very hard look at what was on the table. We started asking ourselves, are we buying the jet that looks best in a brochure? Or are we buying the one that can actually win a scrap in the toughest conditions on Earth? Because at 0401, it became clear. The Gripen wasn't just the cheaper choice, it was the smarter choice for modern warfare. Behind closed doors in Ottawa, I can guarantee you the question was being asked. If this jet can do this in a simulation, what could it do to an intruder over our Arctic airspace? This event touched on a larger truth that we as Canadians can be proud of. In the 21st century, air combat isn't just about who has the most expensive toy. It's about who can make the smartest move at the right time. The Gripen is built for quick deployment and low maintenance. It's a fighter that doesn't just fly fast, it thinks fast. It's built with integrated battlefield awareness and advanced jamming that allows it to punch way above its weight class. That one maneuver was proof that tactical design and digital warfare are now more important than pure speed or traditional stealth. For 3 seconds, the world was forced to reconsider everything. And believe me, every Air Force is watching now. We've come a long way from the days of the First World War dogfights over the trenches in France, where victory depended solely on a pilot's eyes and how tight he could pull a turn in a canvas biplane. Today, at 0552, we are in an era where battles are fought at supersonic speeds, often decided by computers before the pilots even see each other. After the lessons of Vietnam and the Gulf War, the world's superpowers moved toward heavy, cost-intensive stealth fighters like the F-22 and F-35. They are incredible machines, no doubt about it. But not every nation can or should follow that exact path. Sweden, a country with a population smaller than Ontario, but with a military tradition of fierce independence, took a different route. They didn't just chase the ghost of stealth. They doubled down on smart engineering. They created the JAS-39 Gripen to survive and strike without breaking the national bank. And a few years ago, in that simulation, they proved that in an era of billion-dollar jets, 3 seconds of the right move can still win the war. The Gripen wasn't built to dominate the evening news or look pretty at an air show. It was built to survive. It was built for the reality of a pilot sitting on a frozen runway in the middle of nowhere, needing to get in the air and defend their home. That's a reality we Canadians understand better than anyone. Unlike those heavy, lumbering fighters that need a massive ground crew and a pristine hangar, the Gripen is lean. It has an incredibly small radar cross-section, not because of some fragile coating that peels off in the rain, but because of its fundamental shape and the use of smart materials. At 0838, you see the real genius. The Barracuda electronic warfare system. It doesn't just jam radar. It feeds live, actionable data to the pilot in real time. It turns the cockpit into a command center. While other fighters need a small army to get them off the ground, the Gripen can be refueled, rearmed, and relaunched by just 6 people in under 10 minutes. Think about what that means for our northern outposts. That is a game changer. So when that Gripen was locked in that famous simulation against a more advanced jet, it didn't win because it had more raw power. It won because it had more brains. It broke the lock, shifted position, and fired, all in 3 seconds. It processed the threat and acted before the enemy's computer could even register the change. This wasn't a one-time fluke, folks. This is a pattern of excellence. Whether it's outperforming MiG-29s in Thailand or surprising Typhoons in the UK's joint warrior drills, the Gripen has shown time and again that its low detectability and quick strike capability are the real deal. In the Arctic Challenge exercises, Swedish pilots have been scoring simulated kills on F-16s using nothing but jamming and superior awareness. That is why Brazil signed a $4.5 billion deal. That is why the world is waking up. We aren't just talking about a plane. We are talking about the future of how we protect our homes. It's about information. Who sees the enemy first? Who reacts faster? Who strikes before the other guy even knows he's in a fight? The Gripen proved that intelligence and integration can turn the tide against any giant. As defense budgets get tighter and global tensions rise, especially near our borders, we need fighters that can perform under pressure without draining the treasury. This is a global lesson in smart engineering. Those 3 seconds in that simulation might just be the most important turning point in how we define air superiority for the next 50 years. It's a story of courage, intelligence, and the refusal to be intimidated by a bigger price tag. And for us in Canada, it's a reminder that our strength has always been, and will always be, our ability to outthink and outwork anyone who dares to challenge our skies. Now, let's take a deep breath and look at the bigger picture here. Because what happened in those 3 seconds of high-stakes simulation isn't just a win for a piece of Swedish machinery. It is a total paradigm shift that speaks directly to the Canadian soul and our strategic reality. When we talk about air dominance in the 21st century, we've been sold a bill of goods that says if you don't spend the GDP of a small nation on a single wing of aircraft, you're irrelevant. But as a Canadian looking at our vast, unforgiving northern frontier, I see those 3 seconds as a beacon of common sense and tactical brilliance. Think about it. We are the second largest country on Earth. Our sovereignty isn't just a flag on a map. It's the ability to be present in places where the mercury hits -40, and the nearest paved runway is 1,000 kilometers away. The Gripen's triumph is a testament to the distributed warfare doctrine, a concept that fits our national character like a well-worn pair of winter boots. While the billion-dollar heavyweights of the world require pristine hangars, climate-controlled environments, and a literal army of specialized technicians to keep their stealth coatings from peeling, the Gripen was designed to be a street fighter. Imagine the sheer pride we would feel, knowing our Royal Canadian Air Force could operate not just from vulnerable, massive air bases that are sitting ducks for long-range missiles, but from a stretch of the Trans-Canada Highway or a remote logistics strip in Nunavut. That is what the 0838 mark in our analysis was all about. The ability to rearm, refuel, and relaunch in under 10 minutes with just 6 people. That isn't just a technical stat. It's a strategic nightmare for any aggressor. If you can't find the enemy's airfield, because every road is a potential airfield, how do you win? This is the kind of working smarter, not harder attitude that defined our ancestors who built this country. Those 3 seconds in the simulation proved that the Gripen's electronic shield, the Barracuda system, is the great equalizer. In Canada, we've always punched above our weight class because we've been forced to be resourceful. The Gripen doesn't try to out-stealth the stealth jets by being invisible to the eye. It outsmarts them by being a ghost in their computers. At 0133, when that radar warning receiver was screaming, it wasn't just noise. It was a signal to start a digital symphony. The jet's ability to create a digital fog is exactly what we need for our Arctic sovereignty. In the vast, open skies of the North, you can't hide behind a mountain, so you have to hide behind data. Let's talk about the human element, because that's where the Canadian spirit truly shines. Our pilots are among the best trained in the world, and they deserve a platform that doesn't treat them like a passenger to a computer, but like a quarterback of a high-tech team. The way the Gripen pilot used the Iris-T and the helmet-mounted sight at 0204 to secure a kill from an impossible angle. That is peak Canadian ingenuity. It's the hockey player who finds the back of the net from a 0-degree angle just because he outthought the goalie. It's about having the eyes to see the threat before it sees you, and the reflexes to strike while the other guy is still checking his manual. For our audience, especially those of you who remember the pride of the Avro Arrow, this is the modern realization of that dream. It's a jet that prioritizes the pilot's situational awareness through the Tittles data link, allowing a flight of 4 Gripens to act as one single massive sensor. One jet can keep its radar off and stay completely silent, while its wingman, hundreds of miles away, feeds it the target data. This silent hunting is how you defend a territory as massive as ours without breaking the bank. We also need to address the hard truth of our national budget. As taxpayers, we want our sovereignty protected, but we also want our money spent wisely. The Gripen isn't just a budget jet. It's a high-performance precision tool that offers a cost per flight hour that is a fraction of its competitors. That means more training hours for our pilots, more patrols over our Northwest Passage, and more presence where it counts. When Brazil, India, and Ukraine look at the Gripen, they see survivability. When I look at it, I see a resilient Canada. I see a nation that refuses to be bullied by the bigger is better crowd. Those 3 seconds of simulated combat sent a message to every briefing room from Ottawa to the Kremlin. Do not underestimate the agile. Do not ignore the smart, and never assume that a high price tag guarantees victory. This is about our future, our skies, and our pride. We are a nation of innovators, and it's time our air strategy reflected that. The 3-second triumph is more than a maneuver. It's a roadmap for a smarter, tougher, and more independent Canada. Let's lead the way in showing the world that in the modern age, the hunter only remains the hunter until he meets someone who can think faster than a missile. That is the Canadian way. And that is why the Gripen story resonates so deeply with us today. We stand on guard, and we stand ready, not just with muscle, but with the sharpest minds in the sky. If those 3 seconds of tactical brilliance got you as excited as I did, then you know we've only just scratched the surface of modern air power for our great country, Canada. If you want to stay up to date on the latest trends in how Canada is redefining its sovereignty in this new era of digital warfare, do me a favor. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. That helps us keep the conversation going and ensures the world knows Canada is thinking smart and acting decisively. I want to hear from you, the true heart of this country. Let's have a lively discussion about the next video you'd like in today's comments. Arctic resilience. Do you believe the Royal Canadian Air Force, RCAF, should prioritize highly maneuverable jets like the Gripen, capable of operating on icy highways in the north, over traditional bulky fighter jets? Technology versus power. In your opinion, is it time for Canada to take the lead in smart defense by investing more in domestic electronic warfare and artificial intelligence instead of focusing solely on pure stealth technology? The Avro spirit. If we adopt the philosophy of working smarter, can Canada once again become the global gold standard for aerospace innovation, just like in the era of the legendary Arrow aircraft? I'll be joining the lively discussion in the comments, so let's talk about strategy. Thank you so much for your patience in following this analysis to the end. It is patriots like you who keep our country sharp. May our soldiers have a safe journey. Always be proud. And have a great day, Canada.